I scaled this e-commerce brand right here to over $62,833 in just 16 days alone. And in this video, I want to go over step by step exactly how we made it happen from start to finish. Now, for this brand, the scale that we achieved here was very profitable from the beginning, simply because this brand is actually a high ticket store. If we look at the average order value for this brand, we can see that it's over $660 in total. And it is a dropshipping store, but it is a high-ticket dropshipping store that has all suppliers within the United States alone. So their shipping times are very quick. But the kinds of products that they sell range from things like LED grow lights for their plants to even things like dry trimmer machines, which are just trimming machines that are used in certain factory conditions and so on and so forth. So there's really no specific niche per se. It's just a bunch of high-ticket products with various different profit margins. But still, besides this brand had been doing extremely well with Google for the longest time ever, until just recently when their results, for whatever reason, started to just tumble downwards. I mean, if we look at the brand in the last 180 days, we can see that overall it seems to have been very consistent and very profitable per se, spending things like $2,600 to make back $17,000. So from the beginning, this brand was fairly powerful. However, in the past few days, and then specifically in the past 17 days, this brand had really started to go down in terms of the overall revenue, in terms of the overall profitability. I mean, we had to bring it up from this point where they were barely doing $2,000 in total revenue. And there's a variety of different reasons why this started to happen. But since we began to work with this brand, which we started work on November 4th until today, which is November 22nd when I'm recording this video, but in total, it's roughly 17 days. And within these 17 days alone for this brand, we have been able to scale it to a whole new level. I mean, if we compare it to the previous time period, just within the past 17 days, the revenue is up 31%. The ROAS is at an 8.23x. It's up 12%. The overall ad spend is also up 16%. So not only have we been able to spend more money with their campaigns, but at the same time, improve their revenue and improve their profitability. Now, things were very interesting before we even really started work with this brand. If we just go back a little bit in time from the 1st of October to November 3rd, we can see the things that they were doing to really keep sales consistent and just flowing in. In total, there were a lot of different campaigns running during that given time, specifically 10 different campaigns. And all of these specific campaigns were directed towards an individual collection. And although that strategy and that approach may seem like an ideal way to go about it, in total, that was just causing this brand to have a lot of fluctuations on a day-to-day basis, where on some days they would barely do $800 in sales, where the very next day the sales amount would go up $6,000. And these inconsistencies were making it extremely difficult for the brand to survive despite the high ROAS numbers. I mean, during this time, the ROAS was barely touching a 6x and their break even is a 5x. So this approach, which I like to call the segregation based on product type and product category, it was not enough to get them to the next level. And when we began to work with this brand, the first thing I noticed was just how weak the overall product feed was. Overall, there were a total of 1,200 different products in the account as a whole, but because of the way that they were running campaigns, because of the overall approach they had going on, out of these 1,200 products, 1,025 products barely had a single click. The testing strategy was basically non-existent because this brand was relying on just 10% to 20% of its product catalog to continue getting momentum. This leads to a whole new problem with it being almost impossible to scale the brand because of the overall limitations. But for this brand, right off the bat, we knew that we could not just start off with a normal strategy or a normal approach where we have one major testing campaign, because of the sheer fact that this was a high ticket store. So instead, we took it through a 3-step process known as the AOS process, because the A part of the AOS process is analyze, which is the first step of the funnel. When we came into the account, we analyzed essentially all of the different campaigns going on, all of the different products that were running within these campaigns to understand what's working and what's not working, because that analysis led us to the O phase, which is the optimization phase. Now, for this brand, it started with the work getting done from the foundation up. The main problem with the foundation for this brand was the product feed was not fully optimized because majority of the products had not even been shown. So there were a bunch of these errors such as missing value GTIN errors and so on and so forth. Just a whole product feed with issues that needed to be fixed ASAP. We went deep into competitor research to understand, number one, what kind of product images, what kind of product titles are competitors using. And within all of these different product types that this brand sells, we came to realize that majority of the competitors had either very simple product images that were white background because they were also drop shippers, or there were the real brands with real lifestyle images where they had actually gone outside to take real life photos. And we had to find an approach where it would be somewhere in between, where we could also portray our brand as more professional. But along with that, we had to begin work on the product titles because a lot of these product titles were missing the main keywords which drive these products forward. And as we've continued with our research, there was one key thing I began to realize that was a major issue for this brand, and that was this brand was optimizing for a lot of secondary conversion events, things such as add to carts, things such as begin checkout, phone call leads, so on and so forth. And although right now we have changed all of these to the secondary account optimization setting, they were running as primary in the start, and as a result, a lot of the campaigns were actually optimizing for them. Now, when your campaign is optimizing for things like add to cart or initiate checkout instead of purchase, what happens is the algorithm now tries to find that perfect person who's gonna add to carts or that perfect person who's gonna check out. And these people are very different from those that actually purchase. So once that was all done, it was time to move on to the actual campaign side and introduce the third and final portion of the AOI strategy, which was the scaling portion. Now, with scale, we had to first start finding some results with these existing campaigns. And although we didn't really add too many different campaigns during this time period, we did optimize what was already running, and in total we kept the number of campaigns the same. As you can see, there are still 10 different campaigns that are currently active, that are currently running, but the campaigns that are running, we not only optimized them and made their settings better by using the right approach for a high ticket store, but we also added only one campaign in this because everything else was already in place. We just added a catch-all campaign, and this catch-all campaign, it's crucial regardless of what your AOV is, because as you can see, it's running at a ROAS of 67x. Now, this is normal for catch-all campaigns because that's what their job is. It's to catch any sale which would leak through the funnel. But this campaign alone was responsible for adding a lot of extra profitability to the top of the level. I mean, it added almost $1,000 in extra revenue. Because of this catch-all campaign, now these other campaigns were able to focus more on what they were set to do, which is mostly cold traffic, because that's what we wanted to target majority of these campaigns towards. And we also set certain things like settings for customer acquisition, where we actually checked this first circle right here, where we were bidding higher for newer customers. And we chose one setting here as the option for the value for each new customer, because we didn't want every new customer getting too much value attributed to them. But once these things were working, which was fairly quickly, within the first 1 to 2 weeks, we already started to see some consistent results and overall revenue numbers that were much higher than before. That's when we started to introduce the scaling phase, which is the last phase of the AOI strategy during this portion right here. For this third and final step of the process, it was much more about just introducing vertical scaling, where we didn't want to add any more campaigns now because there were already a handful of campaigns doing well, running well. Instead, we wanted to actually simplify the process and start looking at campaigns to cut, but also by increasing budgets for the campaigns doing well. So what we did is we essentially started increasing the budgets for these major campaigns, where number one, it said limited by budget, but also number two, their profitability and ROAS numbers were through the chart. Because again, the break-even ROAS for this brand was a 5x. There were some campaigns which were running below a 5x, but that's because some of these products had very different profit margins from each other, where they would have a break-even ROAS for a 2x, or on the other hand, there would be products with a break-even ROAS of a 7x. So really finding synergy between these two numbers, we settled at that 5x ROAS, and that's what we are surrounding this brand around. Now, besides Google ads, this brand has Facebook ads going on as well in the background. They're doing Facebook ads retargeting. We're also introducing a lot of Microsoft Bing ads in the background as well. But if you're currently doing $40,000 or more per month in revenue, you need just a little bit of extra help scaling your brand to the next level, go on my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see how we can potentially work together and make that happen. But check out this video right here on my newest standard shopping campaign strategy, which if you combine with this approach we just mentioned here, it can actually help take your brand to the next level.